TIFU by leaving a in for over 3 weeks. I know this sounds like it belongs in our Bad Women's Anatomy, and I would have completely thought the same until like 15 minutes ago, because I didn't know this could even happen, but here I am. TLDR at the bottom, I, 26F, and boyfriend, Henry, 26 meters, have been dating for about 5 months. We have been sexually active throughout the entirety of our relationship, and he spends approximately 6 of the 7 nights a week at my place, which means we do the horizontal boogie on a regular basis. I've also had an IUD since I was 18, well, 2 different ones, and plan on continuing to have one until I'm ready to have kids. Meaning, since my IUD has always been perfect at its job, we always have unprotected. This also means that my periods can be unpredictable and kind of just come and go as they please. I promise this is relevant to the TIFU. Anyways, about 3 weeks ago Henry and I were having our nightly Canoodle, when I reminded him that it was my time of the month and had to take my out. Because we had been getting handsy before I reminded him, he replied, "Really? I didn't feel anything." Yes, we sometimes have on my period, sue us. And so I just thought to myself, maybe I took out and forgot, or just misremembered that my period had ended. No biggie. Again, my period doesn't have like a set length, so it didn't seem abnormal for me to be certain about when it comes and goes. So we do the dirty, I of course believing that there is in fact no in there, and continue with my life like I didn't. And I guess that's where the ongoing foo began, because I probably should have confirmed that there was nothing in there. Fast forward to 3 weeks later, this morning, I woke up, went to the bathroom, and suddenly felt like something was being pushed out of my which felt very similar to that of a and it was. My brain begins to recall why I have a sticking out of my Did I forget that my period started? Did I forget to take it out last night? When was my last period? And then everything began to make sense. About 2 weeks ago Henry and I were having and I noticed that once I became self-lubricated, she did not smell right, and enough so that he even asked me if his smelled bad, but I told him I thought it was me. The smell kind of persisted over this time period, but I thought maybe it was just a weird change in hormones or something normal was contributing to it. But no, it was a bundled up stick of cotton absorbing 3 weeks worth of my genital fluids, and my boyfriend, the very mild cramps I had been experiencing, yay, probably because of the dump cotton stick. Right now he's sitting next to me, and I know I should tell him that we probably don't have to worry about the smell anymore. But I'm so embarrassed I don't know how to. I also don't know what I should do right now. Like, I know douches aren't healthy for you, but if there was any time someone needed to use one, it would probably be me right now. I also can't decide if I should visit my OBGYN. Maybe I can just ask for a new for Christmas. TLDR. I've been having an abnormal smelling for the past few weeks, but I couldn't figure out why. Until this morning, when a 3-week-old fell out that I had forgotten about.
Go to your OBGYN and have them check for infection. Forgotten tampons happen more frequently than you would think.
Before introducing necrosis into the bedroom, it's common courtesy that all involved parties make sure they're on the same page.
Visit your OBGYN just to make sure that you don't have any infections or anything crazy.
Man, you were so lucky you didn't get an infection.
Abnormal smell. From what I've heard, it's similar to the stench of a dead body, and after 3 weeks, you'd likely be showing symptoms of an infection, like a fever.
TBH, I'd probably go to the gyno and make sure you don't have the beginnings of an infection or toxic shock syndrome. As another person with a better be safe than sorry.
Please go see a doctor. I had a coworker who died from toxic shock syndrome. She was a really nice young woman with a small child's sad face.
I would visit your OBGYN ASAP. TSS is a very real risk with situations like this, and if you were having cramping, that can be one of the signs of infection developing. Definitely keep an eye out for other signs of infection, like unusual discharge, fever, body aches, cramping.
This happened to me. My flaps swelled up like balloons. Imagine a lip injection gone horribly wrong. I had to get a shot of antibiotics in my then take 2 medications for a week straight. Please go to the doctor unless you want to waddle wherever you go, cause you have 2 balloon animals between your legs.
Can't wait to see this post read out on Instagram and TikTok with Subway Surfers or Minecraft in the background.
So something very similar happened to me about a month ago. I'm an old hag and I've lived in this body for way longer than you. Mistakes happen, I guess. When I discovered my honorific mistake, I did a teledoc just to ease my mind. The doc reminded me of signs of infections to look out for, like abdominal pain, fever, chills, and unusual discharge. I took a long and hot shower, but nothing invasive or internal. Kept an eye out on my body closer than normal for a few days. All is well. More than likely you're fine. If you're extra worried, consult a doctor. Don't. It's not good for your body. Be nice to yourself. We all goof sometimes.
Grossed myself out a bit there.
Based on my high school education, you should be lucky to be alive right now.
The longest I ever forgot about a was about 18 hours. I was working a long shift and went to sleep after. I have a heavy flow, so it was very obvious when I woke up.
Hot single lepers are in your area.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if I do, just haven't had signs of it yet.
Seriously, my tampons can smell like a dead rat after like 6 hours. The thought of a 3-week-old makes my nose try to crawl inside my head.
Greater than as another person with a Jesus. How many of you are there?
I don't have a and my first thought was, oh no, toxic shock syndrome or a blood got a DM about, what are you, a doctor? No, I'm a guy who knows a little about a lot of things and has had exes that were too stubborn to go to the 2 asterisks since I got another MSG about, I bet she wasn't the only stubborn one. You're right, I'm generally a sarcastic I have DSS, torn ligaments in my strong arm that I have to grab my elbow and yank my shoulder back into place. That's newer. A cyst that formed after I broke my collarbone, a bone that sticks out after I broke my hand. Carpal tunnel, and dental issues. Also at 35 my knee pops constantly, and so does my head insurance. I don't. This is 14 years of I couldn't take any more bills.
Toxic shock syndrome.
Oh, and the smell. The smell. I found out the exact same way. And my infection came a couple days after I found the Be safe.
Thank you, kind stranger.
I'll just sound in as another old hag. This didn't happen to me recently, but way back in the 80s in high school, on a spring break trip to Europe. With the time change, and complete change in daily routine, I had one in for over a week, too. Honestly can't remember anymore. Before I realized it. No symptoms other than odor, which quickly resolved itself when my was able to resume her self-cleaning. I'd say it's never a bad idea to check in with your medical care provider, but don't worry too much if you don't have any actual symptoms. If anything on that list shows up and escalates quickly, then 100% seek emergency care ASAP, and be ready with that recent history.
Thank you for the slight laugh. Wasn't intentional.
I'm only interested if they are ready to meet now. I don't want to wait weeks for them to marinate.
A bad smell and unexpected cramping are signs of an infection.
You probably have an infection. For over a year and a half I've had the same symptoms, but 2 different OBGYNs assured me everything was normal. Well, I almost blacked out at work last weekend and ended up in the hospital. I'd had pelvic inflammatory disease for at least a year and a half, and that's only when the symptoms started presenting. I could have died if a cyst had formed and burst. Now I might need a partial hysterectomy because of the permanent damage done by the infection. Please go get checked out, don't mess around with this stuff.
You yourself listed some, just ignore them lol. Bad smell that persists? Cramping. Take this as a lesson to be more cognizant about your body and to check that you did in fact take the tampons out. In the a former medical worker, EMT, tons of small things can add up into big problems. If you're going to be treating people, definitely also take this as a lesson to pay attention to seemingly random your patients tell you. Definitely go see a gyno to get checked out. Don't be afraid to go to an urgent care or if things get worse, feel off. Your health is not something to just assume it'll be okay. Good health is something you have to put conscious effort into maintaining. Good luck, op.
You seem oddly nonchalant about this. Do you realize you can die? Greater than toxic shock syndrome, TSS, is a rare but life-threatening condition caused by bacteria getting into the body and releasing harmful toxins. It's often associated with use in young women.
We move among you.
There are dozens of us, dozens.
36. Counted them myself.
Bacterial vaginosis, yeast infections, pelvic inflammatory disease if you leave those things, especially BV, untreated. If the smell persists, it's time to go to the doctor. I would not. It could just push bacteria up further and cause further complications.
Yeah, it happens when this exact thing happens. Old menstrual blood plus in bodily fluids for 3 weeks. The smell and cramping may very well be the evidence your body was fighting the bacterial infection, all that biological matter was breaking down into.
The fact that you use tampons but seemingly don't know what toxic shock syndrome is worrying.
My fell out. I wouldn't be surprised if something is wrong.
Thank you for the advice, and I am so sorry this happened to you. Good point. I did have symptoms, but I just didn't feel like I did. That I didn't.
Among us, please no, not again.
At 3 weeks old, that is now weapons grade. It should be buried at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation.
I'm a guy, and reading the title of the post, my first thought was, she's lucky she didn't die of TSS. I mean, I don't know much about it other than it's caused by leaving a in too long, but I know that. So thanks, 7th grade Ed. If Ob is American and from a red state where Ed is glossed over.
I agree with this, and I am sure I learned about it many eons ago in Ed, but haven't heard of it since. But do you want to know something even more alarming? I'm in grad school, in a health-related field. I'm from what most would call a well-educated background. Not once can I remember ever actually learning about TSS in my undergrad or grad. Sure, I'll take the Darwin Award, but I think it also heavily reflects on our current education. Remember being taught how to use a when I was 11, didn't use one until I went swimming when I was 14, and from then on I realized how much more comfortable they were than pads. I can always tell I'm wearing a pad because it feels like diaper, and I'm constantly worried that others can hear or see it, but I can wear a without ever noticing it's in, obviously. Although I wasn't aware of TSS being an immediate problem, I also wish that my culture would finally stop stigmatizing women's bodies so that we could freely talk, be educated on the subject of our own bodies without having to feel ashamed about.
Well, the front fell off in this case, by all means, but it's very.
Girl, you have got to get more familiar and comfortable with your own body. That means if you feel something amiss, feel in there just in case. Especially if you're sexually active and use insertive sanitary products. You can use a boric acid suppositories to help rebalance things, but first I'd go to a clinic and get swabbed for infections. Also abstain from until you find out, because you can play a game of hot potato with infections with your partner.
Sus.
Sounds a little.
If you have a box of tampons, usually there's a folded up set of instructions inside that also has like a full page warning about TSS and all the signs and symptoms and what to do about it. I think they're required by law to include it. Nobody taught me about it either, but I definitely read about it inside the box.
Oh my is like the one big thing we teach kids over and over again. I'm in primary and teach it to 10-year-olds. They then hear about it probably every year of school, whenever ed covers periods. It's also on the outside of every box of tampons. It's so freaking dangerous, you can lose limbs from it, die from them. So glad that you are more aware of it now, but it's so scary to think about how you had forgotten about it. It's such a big deal.
Oh my gosh. It says on the box of tampons. The fact that you didn't know this from health class or reading the box is so sad. To be in a healthcare field too? Oh honey, no. I'm a woman from the two. I'm so surprised at your lack of knowledge from this. Please go to the doctor and make sure everything is alright. TSS is serious. The box of tampons suggests no more than 8 hours of wear at a time. 3 weeks is a long time. I hope everything is okay, Ob.